6 months had passed since the revelation in the Null Sector, and the galaxy barely resembled its former self. The massive crystal spires of the old Galactic Council lay empty and dark, replaced by a floating diplomatic station that seemed to be built from starlight itself. New Geneva Station orbited a neutron star whose impossible gravity had been tamed by human technology. The station was large enough to hold representatives from every known species in the galaxy, with chambers designed to accommodate beings that breathed methane, lived in liquid nitrogen, or existed as pure energy. President Jimin Ryu stood before the largest assembly hall in galactic history. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds listened as he spoke about the future they would build together. 6 months ago, your leaders demanded that humanity surrender our freedom, he said calmly. Instead, we offered you something better. We offered you the chance to build a civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. The response had not been immediate. Some council species had tried to fight even after witnessing humanity's power. The Zenith Collective had launched a desperate attack on human colonies using planet-killing weapons. Captain Hana Yu had intercepted their assault fleet with a single ship. The enemy weapons had been absorbed by her vessel's dimensional shields and converted into pure energy that she used to repair damage to the planet's ecosystems. The attacking fleet had been disabled and escorted home with their weapons permanently removed. Other species had chosen wisdom over pride. The Arcarian dynasty had been the first to formally surrender, offering their ancient knowledge to humanity in exchange for protection from more aggressive neighbors. Director Seo Hyun oversaw the new planetary protection protocols that had replaced the Council's oppressive hierarchy. No species was allowed to dominate others through military force. No government could claim territory that belonged to someone else. The enforcement was subtle but absolute. Human monitoring stations in every system watched for signs of aggression or oppression. When problems arose, human mediators arrived to solve conflicts before they could escalate into wars. Fleet Admiral Youngmin John commanded the joint peacekeeping forces from his flagship, which now served as a mobile diplomatic center as much as a warship. Former Council vessels flew alongside human ships, their crews learning to work together instead of competing for dominance. The Vorthak Empire had undergone the most dramatic transformation. Their warrior culture had initially resisted the new order, but gradually they discovered that protecting the weak required more courage than conquering them. Commander Thex, who had removed War Marshal Krex from command during the surrender, now led integrated defense forces that included human advisors. His ships patrolled trade routes and responded to distress calls from any species that needed help. We used to measure strength by how many worlds we could conquer, he explained to his mixed crew of Vorthak and human officers. Now we measure it by how many people we can protect. Ambassador Minji Park led the Reconciliation Commission, working with former subject species to rebuild their cultures and governments. Entire civilizations that had been suppressed for centuries were rediscovering their identities and taking their place as equals in the galactic community. The process was not always smooth. Some species had forgotten how to govern themselves after generations of council rule. Others carried deep grudges against their former oppressors that threatened to explode into violence. But human peacekeepers had tools that made traditional conflict resolution seem primitive. They could project shared experiences directly into negotiators' minds, allowing former enemies to literally understand each other's perspectives. Captain Seojun Han commanded one of the new exploration vessels that pushed the boundaries of known space. His crew included volunteers from dozens of different species, working together to map regions that the Council had declared off-limits. The universe is so much larger than we imagined, his science officer, a former Zenith researcher, reported during their latest mission. The Council kept us focused on fighting each other while entire galaxies waited to be explored. The old restrictions were gone. Species that had been confined to single star systems for centuries now spread across the galaxy, establishing colonies and trade networks that had been impossible under Council rule. Dr. So-Young Kang made her greatest discovery in the deep archives beneath Seoul. Hidden among the ancient records, she found star charts that showed the locations of other human refugee fleets scattered across distant galaxies. We're not alone, she announced to the research team. Our ancestors scattered to dozens of different galaxies. There are humans out there who have been developing separately for thousands of years. The implications were staggering. If each refugee group had developed their own advanced technology, then humanity's true capability might be far greater than even they had realized. President Jimin Ryu approved the first intergalactic expedition, led by Captain Yoonji Song in a ship designed specifically for traveling between galaxies. The journey would take years, but the potential for reuniting humanity's scattered children was worth any risk. Meanwhile, the reconstruction of galactic civilization continued. The Zenith Collective had abandoned their rigid mechanical philosophy and began exploring concepts like creativity and intuition. Their new artworks combined mathematical precision with emotional expression in ways that amazed other species. Strategic Commander Sunho Bei oversaw the integration of human technology with alien knowledge systems. The result was a renaissance of scientific discovery that accelerated progress across every field of study. Diseases that had plagued entire species for millennia were cured within months. Planets that had been poisoned by industrial accidents were restored to perfect health. Technologies that the Council had declared impossible became routine parts of daily life. Admiral Daeho Kim looked out at the bustling traffic around Earth and marveled at the transformation. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came and went constantly, carrying trade goods, students, tourists, and diplomats. "The irony is beautiful," he told his aide. "We hid our strength because we feared it would corrupt us. But revealing it has allowed us to build something better than we ever imagined." The fear had been justified. Power without wisdom led to tyranny, as the Council species had proven. But humanity had learned from their ancestors' mistakes. They used their strength to lift others up rather than to hold them down. Intelligence. Officer Naeon Kim monitored communications throughout the galaxy and reported unprecedented levels of cooperation between former enemies. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and joint research projects were replacing the arms races and territorial disputes that had defined the previous age. "There are still problems," she admitted. "Some groups resist the new order. Pirates, slavers, and petty dictators try to exploit the chaos of transition. But they're isolated incidents rather than systemic issues. Human response teams dealt with such problems quickly and efficiently. Slavers found their ships disabled and their prisoners freed. Pirates discovered that their weapons no longer functioned when they tried to attack merchant vessels. Dictators woke up to find their secret police forces mysteriously reassigned to humanitarian relief work. The message was always the same: predators would not be tolerated in the new galaxy. But reformed predators were welcome to become protectors. Captain Minho Park commanded the first mixed-species colony ship, carrying settlers to a world that would be shared equally between 3 different species. The colonists worked together to design cities that could accommodate wildly different environmental needs. "This is what the galaxy could have been all along," he observed as he watched human engineers collaborate with Arcarian architects and Vorthak construction workers. "We wasted centuries fighting over resources when we could have been building paradise." As the first year of the new order drew to a close, President Jimin Ryu prepared for the next phase of humanity's mission. The galaxy was healing, but there were still distant regions where the old ways persisted. Species that had never heard of the Council's defeat continued to oppress their neighbors. "Our work is not finished," he announced to the assembled representatives. "Our ancestors gave us the tools to reshape the galaxy. But tools are only as good as the wisdom that guides them. We must continue to earn the trust that others place in us." The children of the Exodus had kept their promise. They had returned not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as guardians ensuring that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. The galaxy had begged for mercy, and humanity had given them something far more precious: the chance to build a future worthy of all the species that shared the stars. The age of cooperation had begun, and the universe would never be the same. The silence in space was broken only by the hum of disabled alien ships drifting helplessly through the null sector. 8,000 Council vessels floated like debris, their crews staring in shock at the human fleet that surrounded them. Captain Seojin Han received new targeting coordinates from Fleet Command. His ship, the Celestial Hammer, moved toward another uninhabited celestial body. This time the target was a small moon that orbited nothing but empty space. "All Council forces, observe carefully," he transmitted. "We want you to understand exactly what we are choosing not to do to your worlds." The Celestial Hammer's main weapon activated. Energy that seemed to come from outside normal reality reached out and touched the moon's surface. The rocky sphere didn't explode or melt. Instead, it began to change. At the molecular level, the moon's matter was taken apart and reassembled according to new patterns. Within minutes, the entire celestial body had been transformed into a perfect crystal sculpture that caught and reflected starlight in beautiful patterns. "We could do this to any of your worlds," Seojin continued. "We could remake your planets into gardens of paradise or works of art, but we choose not to, because your people have the right to determine their own destiny." War Marshal Krex watched from his disabled flagship and felt something he had never experienced before: true fear. The humans weren't just more powerful than the Council species. They operated on a completely different level of existence. Strategic AI Commander Yunajong coordinated precision strikes across the disabled enemy fleets. Her targeting systems identified every weapon, every engine, every critical system in the alien ships. But her orders were clear: disable, don't destroy. Energy beams reached out from human vessels and touched Council ships with impossible accuracy. Weapon systems were burned out without damaging the compartments around them. Engine cores were shut down so gently that their crews barely felt the power loss. Communication arrays were left functional, but their control systems were modified to prevent the transmission of military orders. The Council fleets could talk to each other, but they couldn't coordinate attacks or call for reinforcements. "Your weapons are gone, but your ships remain intact," Admiral Sungmin Lee explained over open channels. "Your crews are unharmed. Your vessels can still support life indefinitely. We could have killed you all in seconds, but we chose not to." The message was clear and terrifying. The humans possessed the power to eliminate entire civilizations, but they had chosen mercy instead of destruction. It was a demonstration of control that no Council species had ever managed. Captain Hyejin Cho moved her battlecruiser close to a cluster of disabled Vorthak ships. The alien warriors watched through their viewports as her massive vessel approached. They expected to be vaporized, but instead she opened communication channels. "Warriors of the Vorthak Empire," she said calmly. "Your leaders sent you to conquer what they believed was a weak species. But strength is not measured by the ability to destroy. True strength is measured by the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when it is not." A young Vorthak officer managed to activate his ship's communications. "Human captain, why do you spare us? We came to enslave your people." "Because your leaders lied to you," Hyejin replied. "They told you that humans were primitive and helpless. They sent you to fight a war based on false information. You are not our enemies. You are victims of poor leadership." Similar conversations took place throughout the disabled fleets. Human captains spoke directly to alien crews, explaining why they had been defeated and why they were being spared. The Council species began to understand that humanity's power was matched by a moral philosophy they had never encountered before. The humans could have ruled the galaxy through fear, but instead they chose to teach through example. Admiral Youngmin John addressed the entire Council fleet from his flagship. His image appeared on screens throughout the alien armada, showing a calm face that spoke with quiet authority. "Soldiers of the Council species, you came here believing you were enforcing the natural order of the galaxy. You were taught that strength gives the right to rule, and that the weak exist to serve the strong. But you have learned today that true strength comes from choosing when to use power and when to show restraint." War Marshal Krex tried one last time to rally his forces. He activated his personal communications and broadcast on all frequencies. "Vorthak warriors ignore the human words. They seek to weaken us with false philosophy. We must fight even if it means death." But his own officers had seen enough. Commander Thex, Krex's second-in-command, calmly relieved him of duty. "War Marshal, we cannot win this battle. The humans have shown us power beyond our understanding, but they have also shown us mercy. We would be fools to throw our lives away for pride." The surrender spread through the Council fleets like a wave. Ship after ship acknowledged defeat and requested safe passage home. The alien commanders had finally understood that they were facing a civilization that could destroy them completely but chose not to. Captain Minho Park coordinated the safe withdrawal of Council forces from human space. His ships provided escort services to ensure that the disabled alien vessels could return to their home systems without falling victim to pirates or rival empires. "We want your people to return home safely," he explained to the alien captains. "You will carry a message to your governments. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity offers friendship to those who seek peace, and protection to those who need it. Strategic Commander Sunho Bay monitored communications throughout Council space as news of the defeat spread. Government officials who had expected easy victory found themselves facing military commanders who spoke of human power in terms that seemed impossible to believe. The reports from the front lines must be exaggerated, declared Chancellor Vex when he first heard the news. No species possesses such technology. But as more reports arrived from different sources, the truth became undeniable. Humanity had revealed a military capability that made the Council's greatest achievements look primitive. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Intelligence Officer Nyan Kim intercepted increasingly desperate communications between Council governments. Some species wanted to launch additional attacks despite the obvious futility. Others began preparing defensive measures that they knew would be useless. A few wise leaders began drafting messages of surrender and requests for negotiation. They understood that the old order was finished, and that survival depended on accepting the new reality. Ambassador Minji Park prepared for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. She would carry humanity's terms for peace to the Council governments, but first those governments needed time to accept that their age of dominance was over. We will give them 7 days to consider their response, President Jimin Ryu announced, just as they gave us 7 days to surrender. The difference is that our deadline comes with an offer of friendship rather than a threat of destruction. As the disabled Council fleets began their journey home, human ships escorted them to ensure their safe passage. The same vessels that had demonstrated godlike power now served as protectors for their former enemies. The galaxy watched and learned. The humans had revealed strength beyond imagination, but they had paired that strength with wisdom and mercy. For the first time in centuries, the possibility of true peace seemed within reach. The children of the Exodus had returned not as conquerors, but as guardians. The Council species would have 7 days to decide whether they would accept humanity's offer of partnership or face the consequences of continued aggression. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The Vorthak Armada filled the space around Earth like a cloud of metal and fire. 3,000 ships stretched across the solar system, their weapons pointed at humanity's homeworld. Each vessel bristled with enough firepower to turn cities into glass. War Marshal Krex stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the pitiful sight of Earth's defense fleet. 12 small ships floated between his armada and the blue planet below. The humans were making their final stand with toys. Open communications, he ordered. Let me speak to these fools before we end this. Admiral Daiho Kim appeared on the main screen. The human looked calm despite facing impossible odds. His uniform was simple, his expression peaceful. To Krex, he looked like a lamb waiting for slaughter. Human Admiral, your time is finished, Krex announced. Surrender now and we will allow your species to serve us. Resist and we will turn your world into ash. Daiho smiled slightly. War Marshal, I have coordinates for you. If you wish to see humanity's true fleet, meet us at these coordinates in the null sector. Numbers appeared on Krex's screen. The coordinates pointed to empty space far from any star system. The human was obviously planning some kind of desperate trap. You think to lure us into an ambush with your hidden mining ships? Krex laughed. Very well. We will come and destroy whatever pathetic force you have gathered there. The transmission ended. Krex turned to his fleet commanders with amusement. The humans were going to make this interesting by trying to fight back. It would be good practice for his warriors. News of the challenge spread throughout Council space. The Zenith Collective diverted additional fleets to witness humanity's final defeat. The Arcarians brought their ancient dreadnoughts to observe the end of another primitive species. Within hours, the largest military force in recorded history converged on the null sector. 8,000 ships from 6 different empires filled the empty region of space. They expected to find a few dozen human vessels hiding behind asteroids or debris fields. Instead, they found nothing but darkness. Scans show no human ships in the area, reported a Vorthak sensor operator. The region appears to be completely empty. War Marshal Krex studied the tactical displays with growing anger. The humans had led them on a pointless chase to nowhere. They're hiding somewhere. Find them. Admiral Daiho Kim's voice came through the communication channels from his small ship at the edge of the gathered fleets. You asked to see our true fleet, very well. Fleet Admiral Youngmin John, please reveal our forces. The reply came from somewhere in the empty darkness. As you command. All ships decloak and power up weapon systems. Reality twisted. The null sector exploded with light as 10,000 ships materialized from nothing. They had been there all along, hidden by technology that bent space and time around them. But now they revealed themselves in all their terrible glory. The human vessels dwarfed everything in the Council fleets. The smallest was larger than a Vorthak battleship. The largest stretched across distances that seemed impossible. They moved through space like living things, their hulls flowing and shifting as they adapted to the environment around them. Fleet Admiral Youngman John commanded the Revelation from his flagship, a vessel 30 kilometers long that made the largest Council dreadnoughts look like escort fighters. Behind him, the hidden fleet arranged itself in formations that spoke of discipline and power, beyond imagination. Council species, his voice rang across all communication channels. You have demanded to see humanity's strength. We grant your request. War Marshal Krex stared at the impossible sight. His 3,000 ships suddenly seemed like a handful of toys facing a storm. The human fleet outnumbered his forces, and each enemy vessel was obviously far more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. Impossible, he whispered. Where did they come from? Captain Hyejin Cho led the first wave of human battle cruisers as they moved into attack formation. Her ship and 1,000 others flowed through space like schools of fish, their movements perfectly coordinated despite their massive size. All Council ships, power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted from this region, she transmitted. You are outmatched and surrounded. We offer you the chance to withdraw with honor. The Council commanders looked at their tactical displays in shock. Their combined fleets registered as tiny dots compared to the human armada. Every sensor reading showed that they were facing technology centuries ahead of their own, but pride and fear made them respond with violence. All ships, open fire, War Marshal Krex commanded. Destroy these human monsters. 8,000 alien warships turned their weapons on the human fleet. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize entire solar systems. Energy beams, missile swarms, and exotic weapon types filled the space between the fleets with destructive force. The attacks reached the human ships and simply disappeared. Dimensional shields that operated outside normal physics absorbed the incoming fire and redirected it into parallel universes. The human vessels didn't even seem to notice the assault. They continued their advance without changing speed or formation. Weapons had no effect, reported a terrified Zenith officer. Our most powerful weapons did nothing to them. Then the humans responded. Battle Group Commander Dongwu Shin coordinated the Titan-class vessels as they demonstrated their power. The massive ships didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, they projected fields that selectively disabled enemy systems. Council ships found their engines shutting down one by one. Weapon systems went offline without being damaged. Communication arrays stopped working as their control circuits simply forgot how to function. The alien vessels drifted helplessly as their technology failed in ways that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Captain Seojun Han targeted an uninhabited asteroid with his ship's main weapon system. The celestial hammer didn't destroy the rock. Instead, it carefully took the asteroid apart at the molecular level and rebuilt it into a perfect geometric sculpture, all within the space of 30 seconds. Council fleets, observe and understand, Admiral Youngman Jion transmitted. We could reshape your ships, your crews, your entire worlds just as easily. But we choose not to. We are not your executioners. We are your teachers. The demonstration sent waves of terror through the alien ranks. If the humans could manipulate matter itself, then no defense existed against them. They could turn entire fleets into art projects or unmake them completely. Strategic AI Commander Yuna Zhong calculated optimal strikes across the Council formations. Her systems identified every weak point, every critical system, every command structure in the enemy fleets, but her targeting solutions were designed for disabling rather than destroying. Engines were shut down with surgical precision. Communication systems were selectively jammed to prevent panic orders. Weapon systems were rendered harmless without damaging the ships that carried them. Not a single alien died in the exchange. Your governments ordered you to subjugate us, Admiral Sungmin Lee transmitted to the helpless enemy fleets. But you are not our enemies. You are victims of leaders who mistake cruelty for strength. Return to your worlds and tell them what you have seen here. War Marshal Krex tried to rally his remaining functional ships for a suicide attack, but his own officers restrained him. They could see the futility of fighting enemies who treated their most powerful weapons like harmless toys. One by one, the council commanders requested terms of surrender. Their voices shook with the realization of how completely they had been outmatched. They had come to destroy a primitive species and instead found themselves facing gods. The galaxy watched, through long-range sensors, as the greatest military force in history was defeated without a single shot being fired in anger. The humans had revealed power beyond imagination, but they had chosen mercy over destruction. The age of council dominance was over. The children of the Exodus had returned to claim their place among the stars. The hidden fleet stretched across multiple star systems. Ships the size of cities floated in the darkness, their hulls covered in armor that seemed to absorb light itself. For the first time in 1,000 years, their engines began to warm up with a deep humming that vibrated through space. Fleet Admiral Youngman John stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the awakening through screens that showed impossible distances. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering that made the Council's greatest warships look like toys. His ancestors had built these giants to fight wars that spanned galaxies. Captain Hana Yu led technical teams through the massive ships, learning how systems that had slept for centuries worked. The technology was so advanced that it seemed almost magical. Computer interfaces responded to human thoughts. Weapons could fire through dimensional barriers. Engines could move ships through space by bending reality itself. The power output from a single ship is equal to Earth's entire energy grid, she reported to the fleet command. These vessels can destroy planets or create them. They're not just warships. They're tools for reshaping the universe. Chief Engineer Jae-hyun Lim discovered that the ship's power cores drew energy from quantum dimensions that existed alongside normal space. The fuel supply was essentially unlimited. A single vessel could fight for thousands of years without needing to refuel. "Sir, I'm reading power levels that shouldn't be possible," he told his captain. "These ships are operating on principles that our current physics says are impossible." The fleet's artificial intelligences began sharing data between ships. They had maintained themselves through the long sleep, but now they needed to synchronize their systems and update their databases with current information about the galaxy. Intelligence Officer Naeon Kim intercepted communications between Council species. The Vorthak were mobilizing their entire war fleet. The Zenith Collective was preparing planet-killing weapons. The Arcarians were bringing their ancient dreadnoughts out of storage. "They're treating this like a celebration," she reported. "The Council species are competing to see who can claim the most human colonies. They think we're going to roll over and surrender." Strategic Commander Sunho Bae coordinated the deployment of reconnaissance drones throughout Council space. The tiny machines were invisible to alien sensors and could monitor every military installation, every fleet movement, every secret meeting. Within hours, the human command knew more about Council military capabilities than the Council knew about themselves. They had detailed maps of every enemy base, complete records of all fleet positions, and real-time intelligence on enemy communications. "The Council has 8,000 ships ready for combat," Sunho reported, "but they're spread across dozens of systems. They don't expect resistance, so they're not coordinating their forces effectively." Admiral Daeho Kim maintained the deception by keeping Earth's visible fleet in normal patrol patterns. To outside observers, humanity appeared to be preparing for a desperate last stand with their 12 small ships. Council intelligence networks reported exactly what they expected to see. Earth's military was in disarray. Human colonies were evacuating in panic. The species appeared to be on the verge of total collapse. But hidden sensors throughout human space detected the movement of ships that were not supposed to exist. Massive vessels moved through empty systems like ghosts, using technology that made them invisible to any known detection method. Captain Seojun Han commanded one of the new battlecruisers that had just come online. His ship was 30 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level continents, but it was designed for precision as much as destruction. "The weapon systems can target individual atoms," his weapons officer reported. "We could disarm an entire fleet without killing a single person if we choose to." The moral weight of such power troubled many of the human commanders. They had been given tools that could remake the galaxy according to their will, but their training emphasized restraint and responsibility above all else. President Jimin Ryu addressed the hidden fleet commanders through secure channels that spanned multiple dimensions. His image appeared simultaneously on bridges throughout the awakening armada. Our ancestors left us this fleet not for conquest, but for protection, he said. We are not becoming conquerors. We are revealing ourselves as guardians. The galaxy has forgotten what justice looks like. It's time to remind them. War Marshal Krex of the Vorthak Empire studied tactical displays showing human space. The primitive species had concentrated their pathetic fleet around Earth itself. It would be like crushing insects with a hammer. We will make examples of their worlds, he told his subordinates. Other species need to understand what happens to those who defy the Council's will. The Zenith Collective calculated the economic value of human colonies with mechanical precision. Their analysis showed maximum profit if human populations were enslaved rather than eliminated. They allocated resources accordingly. But ancient sensors that the Council had never detected began tracking their movements. Every ship, every weapon, every planned attack route was monitored and recorded by intelligence networks that operated outside normal space. Commander Dongwu Shin tested the Titan-class vessels that served as the fleet's heavy assault units. Each ship was a mobile fortress capable of withstanding the combined firepower of entire enemy fleets. Their armor was made from materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Sir, the defensive systems are beyond anything I've seen, his science officer reported. Energy weapons don't just bounce off the armor. They get absorbed and redirected to parallel universes. It's like the ships exist in multiple realities at once. The hidden shipyards that had built the fleet began producing additional vessels. Manufacturing systems that had been dormant for centuries started creating new ships with production speeds that defied belief. Raw materials were converted directly into finished products through matter manipulation technology. Dr. Soyoung Kang continued translating ancient records in the deep archives. The stories revealed more details about humanity's forgotten past. Their ancestors had not just been refugees, but the survivors of a galactic civilization that had chosen exile over domination. They could have conquered the entire galaxy, she explained to the research team, but they chose to hide instead. They believed that true strength comes from knowing when not to use power. As the deadline approached, human families on the outer colonies prepared for evacuation. They trusted their government's promise that they would be protected, but few understood how that protection would come. The visible human fleet maintained radio silence as it gathered around Earth. Captain Hyunwoo, Lee and his fellow commanders waited for orders that would either save their species or lead them all to destruction. But in the depths of space, 10,000 ships completed their awakening sequence. Weapons that could shatter planets came online. Engines that could cross galactic distances in minutes reached full power. Defense systems that operated outside the laws of physics activated and synchronized. The children of the Exodus were ready to show the galaxy what their ancestors had built. The Council species were about to learn that humanity had never been weak. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to reveal their true nature. The countdown reached its final hours, and across human space, ancient machines prepared to fulfill their purpose. The galaxy was about to witness the return of a power that had once shaped the destiny of entire civilizations. Dr. Soyoung Kang wiped dust from the ancient stone tablet with careful hands. The underground chamber beneath Seoul stretched deep into the earth, filled with artifacts that most humans had never seen. She had been working in these hidden archives for 20 years, but the symbols on this tablet were different from anything she had found before. Her translation software struggled with the ancient writing. The words seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. Finally, a pattern emerged that made her heart race. "We are the children of stars," the text began. "Born in distant fires, scattered by war, hidden until the time comes to return home." Soyoung called her research team immediately. Within hours, linguists and historians filled the chamber. They worked through the night, translating more tablets and connecting pieces of humanity's forgotten past. The story that emerged changed everything they thought they knew about human history. Thousands of years ago, humans had not lived on Earth. They came from a vast empire that spanned multiple galaxies, but a great war had torn their civilization apart. Enemy fleets had burned entire star systems. Billions had died in battles that lasted centuries. The survivors had scattered across the universe in massive exodus fleets. Each fleet carried millions of refugees to hidden worlds where they could rebuild their lives. Earth was just one of many sanctuary planets where humans had taken shelter. Admiral Ji-won Nam read So-young's report with growing amazement. He had always wondered why human technology seemed to advance so quickly. Now he understood. The knowledge was already there, sleeping in their genetic memory, waiting for the right moment to awaken. His secure communication system activated with a priority message. The signal came from deep space, from coordinates that no human ship should be able to reach. But somehow the message bypassed every security system and appeared directly on his screen. The text was simple. Children of the Exodus, the time of hiding ends. Activation codes follow. What came next was a stream of data that seemed to contain blueprints for technologies beyond current human understanding. Ship designs that could travel between dimensions, weapon systems that could manipulate the forces that held atoms together, defense shields that operated outside normal space and time. General Taeyong Choi received similar messages at his hidden command center. For 40 years, he had overseen Earth's secret defense projects. He had always wondered where the advanced designs came from. Now he knew they were not human inventions at all, but recovered memories from their ancestors. "Sir, we're getting activation signals from the deep storage facilities," reported his aide. "Which facilities?" Taeyong asked. "All of them, sir. Every hidden shipyard, every sealed weapons cache, every dormant manufacturing center. They're all coming online at once." Captain Yoonji-song guided her scout ship toward the massive structures she had discovered. Her crew remained silent as they approached the nearest vessel. It was so large that her ship could have flown through its engine exhaust without touching the sides. "I'm detecting power signatures," her engineer reported. "These ships are not dead. They're just sleeping." A communication beam reached out from the giant vessel and connected with their ship. Yoonji expected to hear an alien voice, but the words that came through their speakers were in perfect Korean. "Welcome, children of Earth. This is the battleship Eternal Vigilance. I have been waiting for your return." The voice belonged to an artificial intelligence, but it sounded almost human. It spoke with warmth and familiarity, as if greeting old friends after a long absence. "We're not sure what we found here," Yoonji said carefully. "You have found your heritage," the AI replied. "Your ancestors built these ships before the Great Exodus. We have maintained them through the centuries, waiting for the day when humanity would need us again." Commander Minho Park had been chosen to lead the first boarding party. His team wore environmental suits as they docked with the massive vessel. The airlock opened smoothly, and lights activated to guide them through corridors that stretched beyond sight. The ship's interior was both alien and familiar. The designs followed human proportions, but the technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever produced. Every surface seemed alive with flowing energy patterns. Control panels responded to thought as much as touch. "The ship's systems are integrated with quantum processing networks," the AI explained as they walked. "We can manipulate matter and energy at the subatomic level. What your current technology calls impossible is merely basic functionality for us." Minho touched one of the control surfaces. Information flooded into his mind, showing him star charts of regions no human had ever seen. He saw fleets of ships like this one, thousands of vessels waiting in the darkness of space. "How many ships are out here?" he asked. 10,000 in this cluster alone, the AI replied. "There are other clusters hidden throughout the galaxy. Your ancestors were very thorough in their preparations." Back on Earth, President Jimin Ryu met with his senior advisors in the Situation Room. The reports coming in from deep space were almost too incredible to believe. Humanity possessed a secret fleet that could match any power in the known galaxy. "The activation process will take several days," Admiral Ji-won Nam explained. "These ships have been dormant for a very long time. Their systems need time to fully wake up." "Do we have several days?" the president asked. "The Vorthok deadline is approaching. We'll be ready," Daeho Kim assured him. "Even if we can only bring a fraction of the fleet online, it will be enough to surprise them." Fleet Admiral Youngmin Jeon took command of the Awakening Armada from the bridge of his flagship. The massive vessel had been assigned to him through genetic recognition systems that identified him as a descendant of its original captain. The ship's memories contained records of battles fought in distant galaxies. It had witnessed the fall of empires and the birth of new civilizations. Now it prepared to serve humanity once again. Captain Hana Yu worked with engineering teams to understand the advanced technology. The ship's power cores tapped into energy sources that existed outside normal space. They could travel faster than light by folding space around themselves. Their weapons could target enemies across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "It's like finding out your family owns the most advanced military in the universe," she told her team. "And we never knew it existed." Intelligence Officer Naeon Kim monitored Council communications from her position aboard a cloaked reconnaissance ship. The enemy fleets were gathering for their attack on humanity. They expected an easy victory against Earth's small defense force. "They have no idea what's coming," she reported to her commanders. "Their intelligence networks show no awareness of our true capabilities." The Council species continued their preparations for war. Chancellor Vex addressed his fleet commanders with confidence. The humans would surrender quickly when faced with overwhelming force. The war would be over before it truly began. But in the cold depths of space, ancient weapon systems completed their startup sequences. Ships that had slept for millennia stretched their mechanical limbs and tested their incredible power. The children of the Exodus were ready to reveal themselves to a galaxy that had forgotten their strength. The countdown continued, and with each passing hour, humanity prepared to show the universe that some secrets are kept not from weakness, but from wisdom. The massive crystal hall stretched high into the sky above SciFiPrime. Thousands of alien beings filled the floating platforms that circled the central speaking area. Their voices created a low hum that echoed through the space like distant thunder. Admiral Daeho Kim sat in the smallest section of the hall. Only 12 humans had been allowed to attend this meeting of the Galactic Council. They looked tiny compared to the towering Vorthak warriors and the gleaming zenith machines that surrounded them. Ambassador Minji Park adjusted her simple blue uniform and watched the alien leaders with calm eyes. She had learned to hide her thoughts behind a peaceful expression. The other species expected humans to be quiet and obedient. She was happy to let them think that. Chancellor Vex rose from his platform. The Vorthak leader stood 3 meters tall and wore armor covered in battle scars. His forearms ended in claws that could cut through steel. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the hall. "The human colonies must be removed," Vex announced. "They take up space that stronger species need. We offer them a choice. Surrender your outer worlds and serve us, or we will take them by force." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. The Zenith Collective's golden representative nodded with mechanical precision. The ancient Arcarians whispered among themselves in their clicking language. Minji stood up slowly. Every eye in the hall turned to her small figure. "We respectfully decline," she said in clear, steady words. Laughter erupted from several sections. A Vorthak general slammed his fist on his platform. "Decline? You have 12 ships. We have thousands." "We are aware of the numbers," Minji replied calmly. Chancellor Vex's eyes narrowed to yellow slits. "Then you choose war. Very well. You have 7 standard days to evacuate your colonies and return to your homeworld. After that, we will cleanse those systems of human presence." The vote was swift and brutal. Every species except humanity agreed to the ultimatum. Daeho Kim felt the weight of their decision. Earth's visible fleet consisted of 12 patrol ships. Against the combined might of the Council, they seemed like insects facing a storm. Captain Hyunwoo Lee received the message aboard his ship, Seoul's Pride. The vessel was one of Earth's newest, but it looked crude compared to the sleek alien warships that surrounded it. His crew watched him read the surrender demand with worried faces. "Sir, what are our orders?" asked his first officer. Hyunwoo stared out at the alien fleet through the bridge windows. Each enemy ship could probably destroy his vessel with a single shot. But something in his captain's training told him not to fear. There were things about Earth's defenses that even he did not fully understand. "We return home," he said finally, "and we wait." Far beyond the known star charts, in the cold darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred to life. Lights began to flicker in structures that had remained dark for 1,000 years. Computer systems that had slept for centuries suddenly awakened and began running diagnostic checks. Admiral Ji-won Nam sat in his office deep beneath the mountains of Korea. The room looked ordinary, but behind its simple walls lay technology that no council species had ever imagined. His communication device showed incoming messages from coordinates that officially did not exist. "Begin Phase 1, he typed into his secure terminal. Across Earth, similar messages reached other hidden commanders. General Taeyong Choi looked up from his tea as his emergency communicator buzzed. Dr. Soyoung Kang paused in her archaeological research when priority codes flashed on her screen. None of the Council species noticed the subtle changes. Human trade ships continued their normal routes. Earth's patrol fleet maintained its regular schedule. But in the deep places where no alien sensors could reach, preparations began. Captain Yoonji Song piloted her scout ship through empty space toward coordinates that should not exist. Her crew of 6 had volunteered for this mission without knowing its true purpose. They thought they were conducting a routine survey of dead systems. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead," reported her navigator. "That's impossible," Yoonji replied. "These systems have been dark for millions of years." But as they approached the coordinates, their sensors began detecting artificial structures. Huge metallic shapes drifted in the void, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. They had been hidden behind fields that bent light and energy around them. "My God," whispered the navigator. "How long have these been here?" Yoonji stared at the impossible sight. The structures were clearly ships, but they dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. Each vessel was kilometers long and covered in weapon systems that looked like they belonged in science fiction stories. "Send a message to command," she ordered. "Tell them we found something important." Back on Earth, Daeho Kim met with President Jim and Ryu in a conference room that few people knew existed. The room's wall showed star charts of regions no Council explorer had ever seen. "The countdown has begun," President Ryu said quietly. "Are we ready?" "The fleet commanders report all systems are coming online," Daeho replied. "It will take time to wake up everything, but we have 7 days." "And if we're not ready in time?" Daeho smiled grimly. "Then the Council will learn why our ancestors chose to hide rather than rule. Some lessons are best taught through experience." Meanwhile, Chancellor Vex prepared his war fleets with eager anticipation. The Vorthak had been looking for an excuse to test their new weapons. Crushing the weak humans would send a message to any other species that might dare to resist Council authority. The Zenith Collective calculated the economic value of human colonies. Their mechanical minds saw only resources to be harvested and populations to be enslaved. They allocated the minimum force necessary to complete the task efficiently. The Arcarians remembered ancient stories about a species that had once challenged the galaxy's greatest empires. But those were just myths, surely. The primitive humans could not possibly be connected to those legendary warriors. As the 7-day deadline approached, human ships began moving toward their home system. To outside observers, it looked like a frightened species gathering for their final defense. Council intelligence reports confirmed that Earth's fleet remained pitifully small. But in the hidden places where darkness ruled, something vast and patient began to wake up. The children of an ancient exodus were finally ready to come home. The galaxy was about to learn that some species hid their strength not from fear, but from mercy. The countdown continued, and with each passing hour, humanity prepared to reveal a truth that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization.